About a month ago, while traveling abroad, I started to develop some troubling symptoms. I had this strange chest pain that lasted for days, accompanied by numbness and tingling in my extremities. I also had decreased physical performance. I'm a gym rat, so when I couldn't perform to my usual capacity, I knew something was off. I just kind of chalked it all up to, maybe I've been overtraining or something like that, or perhaps I'm just bored of the gym. So I took a step away from all of that. But even though I was resting more, this feeling of being tired persisted, as well as my other symptoms, the chest pain and stuff like that. So, in order to combat the fatigue, I drank coffee. I still had things to do, responsibilities, all that jazz. But the coffee wasn't helping the way that it used to. I'm an avid coffee drinker, and the effect just sort of diminished over time. I still had this lingering lethargy. Over time, I started to feel like something was very wrong here. Something is indeed off. Now, I used to work in healthcare, so I'm familiar with heart attack and stroke symptoms, and this was giving red flags. You know how the kids say today it's giving? I'm a young, active male, so this seemed a bit of a reach, but I had justifiable reasons to entertain this idea. There are obviously the glaring symptoms, chest pain accompanied by extremity numbness and tingling. I also struggled with elevated cholesterol in the past, so I figured maybe I let my diet get out of hand, or maybe it's a complication from COVID, which I believe I contracted earlier. So I decided to visit the doctor. When I got there, I told the physician I think I'm having a heart attack. His pupils instantly dilated and he went into doctor mode. He did his checks and didn't see any indications of a heart attack, so we ordered some tests. So I returned home at least somewhat reassured that I wasn't in the grips of a myocardial infarction. So I figured maybe it's just a complication from COVID, like I mentioned earlier, and I took things easy in my room until the next day. But the next day, something continued to feel wrong. I began to feel something like a lump in my chest slowly creeping up. I could feel something bad happening, really bad and strange. I immediately grabbed everything I had, my money, my passport, my phone. I felt like I could feel this heart attack coming and I wanted to get to my doctor who was a couple blocks away, or at least be somewhere public where someone could call an ambulance if I didn't make it. I made it out of my building and walked half a block. Then everything came crashing down. I felt a hot tingling sensation in my chest and face. I felt faint and couldn't breathe. I begged the nearest person to call 911 and I collapsed right there. My heart felt like it was about to give out. It was pumping extremely hard, but it felt as though no blood was reaching my extremities. I literally couldn't feel them. All I felt was cold. I felt as though I was fighting just to stay conscious. Like if I didn't focus on something, I would just slip away and possibly be gone forever. I couldn't believe that I was dying, that this is how it all ends. I thought about all the people I would never see again. I thought about the pain this would cause my family. I began to ask God if I had been a good servant, or was I being punished for some grave mistake? These were all of the things rushing through my head while I was grasping for air desperately. It felt like I was breathing to no avail, like pouring water into a cup with a giant hole. I tried all kinds of techniques to remain conscious, counting, prayer, talking to the police who were standing by as we waited for the ambulance. I remember I had collapsed right in front of a pharmacy. Right at the very door of it, but it was closed. I kept asking the police to get me some aspirin because it's a blood thinner and it may buy me some time with this heart attack. However, the pharmacy I was laying directly in front of was the only one nearby and they could not open it. It was closed. And I just thought about the irony of it all. Life is funny like that. But nonetheless, the ambulance eventually arrived and we sped off to the nearest hospital. And it was at the hospital where I believe my soul was actually tested. Because I was traveling abroad, they brought me to their public healthcare system. Their emergency room was hectic to say the least. It was near triage level of care. I mean, it was a complete madhouse. I was placed into an emergency room bed while I waited for attention, and above me, I instantly noticed something. It was the ceiling fan, this vent that they have lodged in the ceiling. There was nothing particularly special about it. It was the standard ceiling vent that we all see within commercial real estate. But this particular moment, there was something about it that I was drawn to. Mind you, this entire time my symptoms are still raging in the background, and in fact, they've gotten worse. I was freezing cold, unable to move, grasping for air with my heart pounding out of my chest. And as I stared into the center of the fan in the ceiling, I felt something strange happening. I felt as though I was forgetting things. It was this inability to concentrate. So I turned away instead and focused on what was happening in the room. It was a shared room where several doctors were treating patients, and I could see it all. I was in that room for less than an hour, and I saw everything and felt very strange and complex emotions. I saw an old woman right next to me. I could reach out and touch her. She died right there on that table. God bless her soul. They bagged her up right then and there, and I could only think of my grandmother, and I started crying. I saw a little girl having a seizure in one bed while the doctors were trying to stabilize her. There was another girl who was just crying, and I couldn't see what happened to her because the doctors were surrounding her. I could only see her face. I turned away because there was so much emotion in that room, it was just completely overwhelming. The only thing that I could do was stare back at the ceiling, and once again, my eyes were drawn towards the center of the vent in the ceiling, and that weird feeling came over me, like I was being pulled into it. All the noise in the room faded into the background. It was ultimately me in my own little universe, confronted with my own mortality, my own decisions, and my own relationship with the One. And I'll keep what happened in that moment between me and it, but safe to say that the doctor showed up, they did their due diligence, the EKG and blood test all confirmed that I wasn't having any kind of heart attack. And as long as I wasn't dying, they had to let me go, and I eventually went on to speak with my normal doctor. We looked at all of my other test results, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with my heart or my organs or circulation or nutrients. For all intents and purposes, I am a completely physically healthy male. And what most likely happened is I suffered from a panic attack. Now, I thought that this was insane because I don't feel particularly stressed or anxious about anything. I mean, I do, but I thought that this was just how most people felt. I wrestled with this for a while, even doubting the doctor's competence, but then I found out that that's one of the telltale symptoms of anxiety. And after doing some self-reflection and an analysis of how I physically responded to certain stimuli, I could clearly see that what happened to me was psychosomatic. It starts in the mind, and then eventually the body falls into this kind of spiral. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the unfortunate circumstances of my birth. I grew up poor in what is essentially a war zone, or maybe it's connected to my military service where I was actually deployed to a real war zone. I have no idea. Now, anyone who is familiar with my content at all knows that I primarily discuss metaphysics, philosophy, mysticism, esotericism, etc. I try to get to the bottom of what we are, what it actually means to be a human being. And while there is no single encompassing answer for this, in that moment I saw that to be human is to know death. You see, for the gazelle, the lion literally is death, and for the mouse, death is the fox. But for us, we know that they are only its emissaries. It can wear any face, it can be anywhere, and it can show up at any time. It is the literal ghost that haunts all of humanity. Our wrestle with this ghost is one of the biggest things that define our existence as human beings. I've historically stated on this channel that the biggest determining factor in how you behave is what you believe happens when you die. And after having this experience, I've become certain that we are living inside of some kind of memory. That's what it's all about. It is about memory. I've been talking about this concept of memory for a while as my philosophy develops, and it's apparent to me that I have struck a core principle within metaphysics. Due to some YouTube complications, I really won't go too deep into the metaphysics of all of this here. If you are one of my normal viewers, you know that this isn't my usual style of content. Due to some constraints on the YouTube platform, I am changing the way that things go on this channel. There's going to be some major changes, which I will announce very shortly, so keep your ears open for that.